Hello and welcome to the WIHS Journal Public Affairs program. I'm Jerry Williams. Well, a multitude of homeschoolers, kids, and supporters showed up at the state capitol legislative office building while a homeschoolers informational hearing was in session to let their voices be heard that they were against their homeschooling freedoms being taken away. I was on the scene, and this is what I got. Happening now on the WIHS Journal. It's news and public affairs. I'm here at the Legislative Office building, and there's going to be a homeschoolers informational hearing, and they have shown up in droves. The atrium here is full of kids and homeschoolers, and there's signs everywhere. And right now, I'm with Cheryl. And Cheryl, your thoughts and comments about what's going on, and why are you here today?
Hi, good afternoon. I am here because what happened in Waterbury, Connecticut recently was a tragedy. We can all agree on that, but it underscores a failure, unfortunately, of a public school system and state agencies. We need to focus on fixing that. If our education committee and the children's committee and the governor really cared about our kids, they would focus on fixing what they know is broken instead of muscling more people into the broken system. The homeschooling isn't a loophole to be fixed. It's a constitutionally protected right, and there's no reason to cast undue blame on a completely unaffiliated party. Let's take responsibility for fixing what's broken and own that.
What is this informational hearing all about?
The governor has initiated that, and they're basically erroneously attaching homeschool to the Waterbury tragedy. The two are mutually exclusive. They have nothing whatsoever to do with each other, but it is an excuse to regulate and control a different group, to cast blame instead of taking responsibility for their own issues that need to be fixed.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
From the state capitol, I'm Jerry Williams. We are at the Legislative Office building, and from what I understand, I just heard from the security guard, this is the largest crowd in 5 years since the opposition against taking away religious exemptions 5 years ago. Why are you here today?
So we are here today to keep our freedom when it comes to homeschooling. And so we are here to support those right now that are dealing with there was a tragic incident that happened over in Waterbury, and unfortunately, many are using it as a tool to regulate homeschooling when in fact it had nothing to do with homeschooling. So today my family is here because we are a beautiful homeschool family that we've been able to educate, keep our Christian faith within our school at home, and to be able to grow in that. And so my daughter says it right. We're here. Why are we here, Aurora?
My brave U.S. Army dad fought for my freedom. Now it's my turn.
So we are here to fight for our freedom today.
From the state capitol, I'm Jerry Williams. We are in the atrium of the Legislative Office building. Peter Wolfgang, you are relentless. First, HB 7213. Now you're here for the homeschoolers. Why are you here today?
Well, Jerry, when they push, we push back. And the reason the homeschoolers are here today is because there was this horrible tragedy in Waterbury where this young man was being held captive from the time he was a boy, Jerry, for 20 years by his stepmother, allegedly. They're working all this out in the courts. You got to say allegedly until someone's convicted. But there was this horrible, horrible case of this boy being trapped in his house for 20 years, and he had to set a fire in order to escape. And then it came out, no one knew that this poor boy was being held hostage, being held a prisoner in his stepmother's home. And it turned out that he had been in the public school system when he was a young boy, around 12 years old or so. And he had been in the public school system for 5 years. The people that ran the public school system knew that the poor kid was starving. They alerted DCF, they alerted the police, and somehow he fell through the cracks of the public school system and DCF, the Department of Children and Families, and the police. So when it finally came out, what did our state government and its wisdom decide they wanted to do, Jerry? They decided they wanted to investigate homeschooling. We're having a informational, meaning the public can't testify, an informational hearing today on homeschooling because they're treating homeschooling as the problem for why this kid fell through the cracks. The kid was not homeschooled. Homeschooling had nothing to do with it. This is part of a larger agenda that we've seen before. Whenever there's some sort of tragedy like this, there's an old saying on the left, never let a good crisis go to waste. And so they're using this tragedy in Waterbury as a pretext for a long-sought objective of the teachers' unions here in this state, which is to get their hooks into homeschooling. Connecticut, believe it or not, actually has some of the best, and I mean this as a positive, most permissive laws regarding homeschooling in the country. They basically leave the homeschoolers alone. You want to homeschool? You can homeschool. There's no laws regulating it. That's a good thing. We want to keep it that way. The state government hates that. The teachers' unions hate that for two reasons: control and money. That second part, money, especially in a post-COVID, post-Trump world, they want to be able to count these students so that they can then go to the federal government and say, either they're not in the system, so we need money to make up for it, or give us money so that we can put them in the system. And the other thing is control. Jerry, a lot of these kids here today are Christians. They're part of Teach, which is the Christian homeschooling organization in Connecticut, and these parents homeschool their kids for a reason, for very Christian reasons. They don't want the public schools to force their agendas on these kids. Children are not mere creatures of the state. The Supreme Court said that 100 years ago. And these parents know that they are the primary educators of their children. They don't want their children taught anti-family agendas. They don't want their children exposed to adult ideas of sexuality at a very young age. They want to be able to teach their children according to their faith and their biblical values. And that's what's being threatened here. And it's at the absolute earliest stage, Jerry, where now it's just an informational hearing, and if they propose a bill next year, it'll seem like it's just a simple bill. But don't believe any of it, Jerry, because this is how it works. They're master incrementalists. They know how to introduce premises, they being the enemies, frankly, of God in the state of Connecticut and of faith and family. They know how to introduce premises into the law that they can then come back and revisit years later in order to expand their control over other people. I think in many ways, homeschoolers are the first line of faith and freedom in the state of Connecticut. So we're very grateful to the homeschoolers for coming out. Family Institute of Connecticut, we're doing our part, but it's really the homeschoolers themselves that are spearheading this. We're very happy. We put out an alert too. We're very happy to support them. And a big shout out to the Republican legislators here in the state of Connecticut, here in this building. They held a press conference supporting the homeschoolers right before the public hearing. Rob Sampson, Steve Harding, who's the Senate Minority Leader, Vinnie Candelora, Ann Dauphiné. These are all Republican state legislators. They are fantastic. They stand 110% behind the homeschoolers. Now, some of the homeschooling speakers, the individuals who homeschool themselves, are Democrats. So it's not a partisan issue with the grassroots. With the legislators, I don't know. We'd like to see a little more support from the Democratic Party. That's where things stand right now, and that hearing is going on right now. Pray for the success of that informational hearing, Jerry.
Family Institute of Connecticut Action Inc. and Family Institute of Connecticut. He's Peter Wolfgang from the Legislative Office Building. I'm Jerry Williams.
ctfamily.org. Go to our website. Sign up for our email alerts. Thank you.
And you just heard my coverage of what took place this past Monday at the state capitol's Legislative Office Building. If you would like more information about what you heard today, call WIHS 860-346-1049, 860-346-1049. I'm Jerry Williams for the WIHS Journal. It's news and public affairs.